Hi, this is Zach the Guitarist 1993, and this is the first of many tutorials on mixing and other things to do with that kind of stuff. Okay, so just for reference, I'm going to be using Sonar X1 Producer by Cakewalk. I really enjoy this program. It's really good. It's kind of expensive, but you know, they all are. Basically, this first tutorial is on equalizers and compressors. So I just have a general guitar track that I recorded using an SM57 mic recorded my speaker. And so I'm just going to show you what it sounds like, and then we'll get right into the equalizer and compressor. Okay, so it has a really nice guitar tone, or maybe not if you don't like it. It's whatever, it's your opinion. Okay, so basically, so you have your guitar tone, you've recorded it. It sounds alright, but it doesn't quite sound like all the songs you listen to on your iPod. So on every track, not just guitar tracks, is going to be an equalizer and compressor. So an equalizer equalizes the sound of the frequencies to whatever you need them to be, and a compressor compresses the sounds so that they're all even. Okay, so we're going to start with the equalizer. Now I've already got one set up here, but I'm going to explain everything I've got here. So for guitar and in general, you're going to want to follow, it's called the happy face format. So as you can see, this sort of looks like a little bit of a happy face, maybe. So basically, all these points you can move up or down to choose whether you want it that frequency louder or quieter. So as you go farther to the left, or 0 frequency, that's your basses. In the middle, around 500, is going to be your mids, and past 4K or so is going to be your trebles. So basically what I have here is I've increased the gain on the bass frequencies to about 6 or so decibels, and that's just going to give it more bass. Then the mid basses I have even. The mids I've dropped a little bit less than 0, and then what that's going to do is it's going to swoop some of the mids out, because generally when you record a guitar there's a little bit too much mid, and that's that crunchy sound that you sort of have there. Next you have your high mids, and that I have at even. After that comes the trebles. Now on the line it's at 0, but on the graph it's at 3, and that's because this next point here is higher, so they follow each other, right? So depending on how you set up the peaks down here, so you can have it low pass, high pass, shelving low, and peak dip, and I'll explain those after. So this is at about 3 decibels at the point, and that's about where I need it. And then past about 12K is your air. It's called, and that's at about 6. That just it's your really high trebles. It just gives it a much fuller sound when you have that in. So I'm just going to show you what each of these little things do here. So a peak or dip is just basically just sort of like a hill or a valley. So it either curves up or curves down. Next, your shelving low means that it starts at high and goes lower than what it started at. Your shelving high starts low and goes higher. Your low pass is at that point it goes much lower. So as you can see, this is not going to really make much sound at all except for the bass, because everything's blocked out. High pass, it's going to start really low, and at that point it's going to increase. And And yeah, so those are the 5 main ones that you have. So I'm going to put that back to peak dip. Okay, so that's an equalizer. Now I'm going to let you hear what it sounds like without it and then with it again. So here's without. Okay, and then here's with. Okay, so next we have compressor. So a compressor does exactly what the name entitles it. It compresses the sound. So basically, if you have a certain frequency that's way too high at a certain point, it will even it out with everything. Or if you have something that's way too low, it'll also even it out with everything else. So I'm going to start up a compressor. I already have it set up, but again, I'll explain everything. Okay, so on a compressor, you're generally going to have threshold, ratio, knee, gain, attack, release, and input. Okay, so your input is going to be related to your threshold. Input and threshold are the same thing. So I generally keep mine around, -25. That's just where I like it. With both the equalizer and compressor, it's just going to be a matter of fooling around with all the controls until you get the sound that you like. And then eventually you'll learn what you need and what everything does. And that's basically how it works. So next you have your ratio. Now your ratio is the rate at which it compresses. Or, well, not the rate. It's kind of hard to explain what the ratio does. It's the ratio at which it compresses at. So I have a 2-to-1 ratio here. So it's 2 times the compress compared to normal. So I'll show you. What basically, as you decrease or increase the ratio, it's going to make this line a lot more even. So at your threshold, it's going to even out those sounds more. So I generally keep my guitar at either 2-to-1 or 4-to-1. So I'm going to do 4-to-1 in this case. Your knee is, well, I'll show you. If you go to 30 decibels, it's a really round curve. And if you go to hard, it's just a point. Right? Okay, so I generally keep that around 17. Sort of a curve, sort of a point, sort of in the middle. Okay, next you have your gain. Now, you're going to want your gain a lot louder if you have a really high ratio, because as you can see, this gray line, I don't know if you can see it, that's your input. So that's basically just the sound by itself. So anything that's above it is going to be louder, and anything that's below it is going to be quieter. So if you have a lot below that line, your sound is going to be a lot quieter than it was before. So I'm going to put mine at about 9, and that's just preference, really. Now, attack and release. Your attack is, well, how fast it attacks the sound, and your release is how fast it releases it. So basically, in this case, I have a really low attack and a mid release. So attack with a really low attack, the second the sound starts, it's going to compress it. With a mid release, it means that once the sound ends, it's going to release it at a medium rate. It's not going to just cut off completely, and it's not just going to not compress it at all anymore, but it'll have a nice even slope down. Okay, so that's basically what a compressor does and all the controls. So I'm going to let you hear again without either of those effects. So here's what it sounds like. And now with both of them on. So here we go. Okay, so as you heard, or may have not heard, it has a much more professional sound to it. The tones are much more even. It's not sloppy and crunchy and all over the place. And that's basically what an equalizer and compressor do. So this is my first tutorial, so I hope you liked it. Leave me some comments on whether some things that I should change or some things that you liked about it. And so I hope you enjoyed, and rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks a lot.